We want to thank His Honor the Mayor for his hospitality in inviting us in to the warmth and the dry.
I wish I had like an open bar or something.
That would be lovely. Yes, yes. Yeah. I could use a dram or two. Yes. But we're very happy to be here, and I know that obviously the weather discouraged some of us because we usually have a nice gathering outside for this event. But the hearty souls are here, and we thank you for coming, and we're glad that we were able to provide the relief of actually not standing in the rain and listening to speeches. That can be a little bit trying, and we don't know what it's going to do. Tonight it seemed to have, we thought it was calming down at one point, and I was all excited, and then I was in my office and I heard whoosh, and no, that's not going to happen. So, but we're happy to be here, although we're not happy that we need to be here every year. Every year we do this tree lighting ceremony. We won't be actually lighting the tree tonight because we do not want His Honor to get electrocuted.
Thank you.
It's rather wet out there, and so that would really make the headlines, though, wouldn't it? But we don't want that to happen. But you will see the tree that will be lit for the month of October to commemorate Domestic Violence Awareness Month. This month is celebrated, and I hate to say celebrated, but it is marked, let's say, across the country. It is a national movement that started way back in the 80s. And so we participated in it here because we know that domestic violence can affect all of it, us, and has affected people in our community, people that we love and care for. So without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to Mayor Mitchell to greet all of you. And again, thank you, Mayor, for letting us come inside.
Thank you. Thank you.
I wish you weren't so darn tall. I feel like Yoda standing next to you.
I'm so sorry.
It's like Yoda and Darth Vader. It's like
oh, Darth Vader. Gee, you really know how to butter a guy up.
We like Darth Vader. He's a great symbol.
Oh, okay.
It's a great sinister symbol, perhaps. But
where are you going with this? Sinister? Okay, thanks.
Hey, he has that James Earl Jones voice.
All right. That's good recovery. Good recovery. Well, I do want to thank everybody for sticking with it tonight. We had monsoon season earlier this afternoon visit us, but I think your presence here really underscores the importance of the event, the annual event that we have here at City Hall, in which we together attempt to remind everybody that domestic violence is not solved. We've made progress. We certainly celebrate the work that you guys do at the Women's Center, Pamela, and I know a lot of folks are here, and a lot of folks who are, part of that team here. And I want you to know just how much we appreciate you do on behalf of families every year, day in and day out, but year in and year out, as we attempt to build a stronger city, to build stronger families, to give people opportunity. I mean, what you do matters a lot, and we have great partners who are with it every step of the way. The police department, Deputy Chief Paul Oliveira is here, and we'll come up and say a few words in a moment. And our City Council, of course, Naomi Carney has always been a stalwart. The District Attorney's Office, everybody. And I want to just take the occasion. And I don't think I've ever missed one of these. Don't tell me if I have. I don't think I have.
No, you haven't.
I have. But I really, it's showing up counts for a lot, regardless of circumstances, because it's a constant fight. For those of us who've seen it play out with friends and family members, it's certainly it's a jarring thing, and jarring over the years, over lifetimes, over generations. And so what we want everybody to know is that the city has your back. The law enforcement community will do its job as appropriate. The support community, your city, everybody, the Women's Center for sure, and other groups are there for you. And we really appreciate that commitment, because that's what it takes, and that's a mark of a very strong city. So I just wanted to take the occasion to say that, as well as to read a proclamation commemorating this day in this month. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and as you'll hear in this proclamation, there are some startling statistics I'm sure many of you are familiar with them, but they bear reflection. So 24 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner in the United States. Intimate partner, somebody they love. 12 million people are affected by an intimate partner violence every year. 12 million. 70% of women worldwide will experience physical or sexual abuse by an intimate partner during their lifetime. 70%. 1 in 15 children are exposed to an intimate partner violence at least once a year. The cost of intimate partner violence exceeds $8.5 billion annually. 3 women are murdered every day, on average, by a current or former male partner in the United States. 10 victims have already lost their lives to domestic violence in Massachusetts for the year 2019. The month of October will be devoted to raising awareness on the causes, prevention, and interventions of this devastating set of crimes. We need to work together, men and women, to end domestic violence. And therefore, in recognition of the important work that's being done, again, by so many of you here and many who couldn't be here tonight, I proclaim as the mayor of the city the month of October Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and reaffirm the city's commitment to doing everything in its power to mitigate the effects of domestic violence and to prevent further domestic violence. And again, so grateful for the work that we all do together. So we're going to do the introduction. You want me to do them? Or?
Yep, it would be great.
Sure.
You take the next one.
Okay, all right.
Although I will say that our wonderful chief of police, who we all love dearly, was not able to be here and would have been if he could have.
Yes.
But he has sent a wonderful
stand-in. So Chief Cudero, wonderful stand-in. So Chief Cudero couldn't be here tonight, but it bears emphasizing not only has he done much as chief in focusing on domestic violence, but he was also a member of your board for many, many years. So this is something that's been near and dear to him for a long time. So in his stead is somebody else who's been involved in the investigation and prosecution of domestic violence cases as a police officer, and who, along with Chief Cudero, is committed wholeheartedly to ensuring that New Bedford becomes a safer place for everybody, and that's Deputy Chief Paul Oliveira. Paul.
Wrote down a few words. I would like to thank all of you for the opportunity to speak to you on behalf of the New Bedford Police Department. I'm honored to be one of the voices like yours to support domestic violence awareness and advocacy for those who are unable to speak up for themselves. As we are all well aware, the domestic violence epidemic is not only a citywide issue, it affects individuals in every community throughout the country. Our presence here tonight is a show of support for the victims who are often powerless or too intimidated to advocate for themselves. The New Bedford Police Department prides itself on its collaboration with the many social service providers throughout the city to help combat this epidemic. Our officers are well trained to handle these situations by showing compassion for the victims and accountability for the offenders. We are committed to provide services to each and every victim of abuse and to help them escape their world of fear and violence. Although no two calls of domestic violence are alike, we, like you, will always be there to support the victims. I can tell you firsthand, one of the most rewarding calls for us is when we are able to encourage and empower a victim to escape the cycle of physical and emotional trauma. One last thank you to all of our partners who assist us in carrying out our responsibilities when dealing with this issue. We will continue to work alongside of you and strengthen our network with you to ensure we are providing the best possible service to the individuals who continue to suffer from domestic violence. I would also like to publicly thank Camille Anderson and Sarah Ferreira, who are here today, who are our unsung heroes within the department that help us carry out our duties on a daily basis. And also Dot Lopes, who's unable to be here tonight. So again, thank you all for everything you do to help us.
I want to add, I really want to give thanks to District Attorney Tom Quinn and his team, some of whom are here tonight, for their work and on all these issues. We have very effective advocacy in the courtroom, as well as victim advocacy over at the DA's office, and the work of the police would go in vain many times if it weren't for the work that the DA's office does. So I want to thank you guys for that. The next up is, again, as I said, there are many partners here. Naomi Carney has been a leader on the City Council when it comes to matters of domestic violence, and has been very outspoken simply as a member of, a resident of the city, member of the community, along the same lines. So I wanted to ask her to come on up and say a few words.
Thank you, Mayor Mitchell, and I want to thank Pamela and the Women's Center for all the fabulous work they do. I want to thank everyone for coming out on this rainy night, but this is a great showing for inclement weather. I just want to let you know that I'm here representing the entire City Council, because we are strong advocates of what the Women's Center and Pamela and the community does for domestic violence. This is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, but domestic violence has such staggering numbers. It's not just the month, it's every single day. So we should be well aware of what's going on in our community. The police department has been phenomenal with assisting with arrests and coming to the aid of women, but the numbers are staggering, and we've got to put a stop to it. Every single day, somebody is getting hurt, whether it's male, woman, or child. It's not acceptable in this society, New Bedford and in the country. So we need to keep together and make sure that we try to do our best to do anything we can to stop it. You need to look at your neighbors, your friends, something that's if somebody's getting hurt, abused, we need to assist. We need to reach out that helping hand, because they can't speak for themselves, and sometimes they're way too afraid to even ask for help. So we need to encourage these women, men, and children to step up to the plate and ask for the help, because we're there to help them and to assist them. So I just want to make sure that everybody steps up to the plate, and that we all support the October for the Awareness Month, the Domestic Violence Awareness Month. But remember, it's every day. It's not just for the month. We have to be aware every single day that this is happening throughout our country. So thank you very much for coming, everybody.
Thank you, Naomi. And so I'm going to turn it back over to my good friend Pamela. And I just really want to bears emphasizing just how grateful we are for your leadership and doing everything it takes to protect families, to protect individuals who are at risk or have been subjected to harm from people they love, and you provide such a invaluable resource for them, and you do it with a level of skill and determination and care that is extremely rare. And so I just want to thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you. Well, it has been said that it takes a village to raise a child, and it certainly takes a village, a dedicated village, to do this work. Thank you very much, Deputy Chief, for mentioning the Domestic Violence Unit at the Police Department. We are so fortunate that we have a unit that is in place, and many of them have been there in place for some time, and certainly know this work backwards and forwards. And we work very closely with them, and we're very grateful that they are there at the police department to see victims when they make their way there. We're also extremely great, and thank you very much, Mayor Mitchell, for mentioning the DA's office. Again, a very important piece of this work. Now, the Women's Center's role is very clear. We are not about the prosecution. We're not about going forward with a criminal complaint. We have partners that do that for us and do it extremely well. But we are about the healing piece. That's the piece that we bring to the table, because we know that sometimes the court part, the prosecution part, while it may be extremely effective in terms of getting that person off the street and away from finding another victim, doesn't necessarily lead to healing, and almost never does lead to healing for the victim that we're dealing with. That has to happen through help from a place like the Women's Center. You are very fortunate. I have been here for the last 17 years, but the Women's Center has been here for 45 years. So you're fortunate that you have one of the oldest organizations, if not the oldest. I get into a fight about that all the time in Boston, about whether we're the oldest women's organization doing this work. I believe we are. 45 years is quite a long time. And the sad thing is that we still need to be here. The great thing is that we are here. And we have wonderful partners that do this work with us, that fill in all the gaps to protect the survivors that we help to heal in this regard. And yes, as City Councilor Naomi said, this is an everyday problem. This is not just October. But in October, we do take the chance to take a look at what we are doing and how we are doing in addressing domestic violence. And we know that we have made some inroads. We actually have fewer names today. We've brought the list up to date, and it is actually 13 incidents of domestic violence last year, going up to September 23rd of this year. But those incidents involve 20 people, because there are tragedies that occur in domestic violence, such as one that happened last year, where a house was burned down by the abuser that had his wife and children in it. So that was one incident accounting for 3 deaths. And that's what happens with domestic violence. It's a terrible scourge in our community, and something, the sad thing about it is we know these deaths can be prevented. This is the World Health Organization years ago identified domestic violence as the most identifiable and preventable form of death that takes women predominantly, some men, and certainly children every single year. We can prevent it, and that is one of our missions, is to do that prevention work, to move upstream to see why the bodies are falling in the river to begin with, rather than just continuing to pull them out at the end of the stream. That is a mission of ours, and we're very grateful last year that Senator Mark Montigny was able to get an earmark for the Women's Center to do prevention work in the schools. We feel that the younger you can get to children, the better. Even to talk about, from grammar school, healthy relationships and friendships, so that they begin to identify when they're in an unhealthy relationship. So I thank you all for being here this evening. And we are here, and one of the reasons we recognize Domestic Violence Awareness Month is that we have to remember that we are the voices for the victims. This is something that occurs in silence. In fact, on October 22nd, we do a vigil to remember the lives of those people that died last year in Massachusetts because of domestic violence, and also the lives of those in our community over the past number of years that we have lost to domestic violence. Remember that this is a threat to lives. It is not just a threat to someone's well-being or their financial well-being, or because very often it can be a financial threat rather than a physical threat. It is all of that, but it also takes lives every single year, and we need to remember that. So when we look at the tree, which will be lit when it's not a monsoon out there, we want to remember not just the people that died, though, but those that are currently living in silence and in violence, and remember the struggle that they have. And remember to think about the people around us, and if you have any question that someone you know may be in that kind of dangerous relationship, you can always call the Women's Center. We are there 24/7 to give help to victims and to friends and loved ones of victims, to make sure that they have the information that they need to take care of their loved ones. Because this doesn't just happen to the other person. This happens to people that we love and care about, and it can happen to any of us. This is the worst form of violence, because it comes from someone who's supposed to love us and whom we love. And so it's very hard for victims to believe that they could actually have someone take their life who told them that they loved them. And so it's hard to come forward and get help. It's hard to separate from that kind of relationship. but what we try to do is spread awareness that the help is there when it's needed. So remember that remember the victims that are living in silence, remember those that we've lost, remember to be their voices and speak up. And when you hear someone talking about an incident of someone that has been abusive, that you try to find out who the survivor or the victim is there and see if you can get information to them. Not at risk to yourselves, but we have hotline cards, we have all kinds of information that's available, or even if it's just as simple as asking us to go to a particular place and do an outreach presentation there. And then we're presenting it to everyone, that person is in the room. And I can't tell you how many times I've done a presentation and someone has come up afterwards and said, well, I have a friend that. And sometimes it is a friend and sometimes it's them. But it is an opportunity for them to get the information. So speak for the victims, partner with us as our other partners do. We're very grateful to have you in our world and working with us. We don't expect you to do this on your own. We don't expect you to put yourself at risk. But if you can get information from us about how to judge if someone you love is in that kind of a violent relationship. A few years ago at the vigil, we had one of the most touching speakers we ever had. He was the grandfather of a baby, a little boy, 2-year-old, who had been murdered by his daughter's partner. And he said, I knew something was wrong. I just knew something was wrong, and I didn't do anything. And he had such guilt because of that. But it wasn't on him. He didn't do it. The perpetrator did it. But his voice saying to people, if you think something's wrong, speak to someone, was very powerful and very effective, because he lost his grandchild because he didn't come forward and because his gut told him one thing and his head told him another, and by the way, his daughter was telling him another, because the victim sometimes is the worst person at judging what their level of danger is, and they will minimize and deny and say, no, it's fine. So you have to go with your gut. If you think somebody is in danger, please come to the Women's Center and get help for them, get help in how to help them. So again, think of the men, women, and children, and the mayor said that it is not just it's not just women, although we know the percentage is very high for women. We believe that the numbers are soft with men because our society expects men to be, able to take care of themselves. And what do you mean that this person abused you? It's just a girl. How did that happen? And so we sort of have a scornful way of dealing with men who are in that situation, but men are victims as well, and we deal with men as well. We call the Women's Center, but remember, women give birth to little boys and little girls and to transgendered individuals, and we care about our children. So we care about the boys, we care about the girls, we care about anyone who could be a victim, and we hope that they come and find help at the Women's Center. I am so fortunate to have been there long enough to have seen some wonderful examples of the work that can be done when you work with victims and turn them into survivors. Because a true survivor will get through and will get on with things, and that takes help. It takes tremendous help. And we have many, many partners in this community that work with us. So please, what can you do to help us in the work and to help victims? Well, a few things are simple. Simply take a ribbon tonight, a purple ribbon, and wear it during the month of October at least. Wear purple. I have a purple hat on tonight. And people sometimes ask, why you're wearing a certain color, or say, gee, that's pretty. Yes, it's a pretty color, but I'm wearing it because this is October, and I want to recognize victims of domestic violence. That's a simple thing you can do. Other things you can do is reach out on our hotline to get information. If you work someplace, you have a workplace where that they might be open to having us come and speak and do a small, short awareness presentation. I mean, we can do everything from 10 minutes to 20 minutes to an hour and a half. I'm like Chatty Cathy doll. You just wind me up and I talk. So but we can work with parameters of someone who says, we have a staff meeting, you got 10 minutes. And in that 10 minutes, I'll give them as much information as possible. So do that for us. Bring us to where you work, and we're glad to go there. We have a great new education team that's getting geared up, and we're going to let them loose, and we're hoping that you'll all give us the opportunity to come. And most importantly, please attend our vigil and our march. We do a march in silence from here, from in front of City Hall, which may now be in front of the library because of City Hall steps being under construction, and we march to the Unitarian Church. It's not a long way, but it's a big step for victims, because as we march in silence, we remember what it's like to not be able to talk to someone about something that's important to you, or just something as banal as, wow, what a beautiful night. You can't say it because it's a silent march. Then you think about the silence that people live in, about the most important thing that's happening to them, that their life is threatened and their children are threatened. So that's why we march in silence. And then at the Unitarian Church, we do an ecumenical service that will recognize and talk a little bit about a small bio on each of the people we've lost, to remind us that they're not so different from us, that it can be anyone whose life is lost to intimate partner violence. And it's important that we remember that. It is a very solemn evening, but beautiful, and I hope you will join us on October 22nd. And of course, all month long, as I said, wear a purple ribbon or wear purple, and remember victims of domestic violence. And if someone says, gee, they put a Christmas tree up early outside the City Hall, say, no, that's not a Christmas tree. It's because it's October, and that's to remind us to remember the victims of violence, the ones who are living and the ones who have died. So thank you all for coming out. I know it's terrible weather out there, and you all get to go and run to your cars with your coat over your head now, but usually we don't worry about the beginning of the month. That's never been a problem. We've always been able to go right up on the steps, and what we worry about is usually by the end of the month in October, you really do have some interesting weather. We do tend to go rain or shine, and we bring ponchos for everyone, so you can be covered if you're going to march. If you can't march for some reason, just meet us at the church at about 6:20, which is when we usually get there, depending on how fast the people in the front of the line walk. And Joe Cadero marches like he's in the army, and he's like, Joe, I can't keep up. So he's usually there. We're there about 6:15 when he's leading. So usually by 6:20, 6:30, we're over at the church, and you can join us there for the service. So we hope you will. We thank you so much for coming out tonight. Naomi, thank you. Thank you, Deputy Chief. And most importantly, thank you, John. Thank you so much. Thank you.